let's talk about this first story. It's a crazy story, but I don't want to go hard on deep cultural issues because we're gonna lose control of the feed in about 10 minutes. So this is from Timcast.com. First Texas bus drops off illegal immigrants in Washington, D.C. The convoy is part of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's push to secure the southern border and stem the flow of illegal immigration from Central America. So basically what happens is Joe Biden's administration starts sending illegal immigrants to communities in Texas. People get really upset by this for obvious reasons. He's been doing it all over the country, even in the dead of night. The governor of Texas said, okay, I'll tell you what, you want to do that here? I'm going to send these people to D.C. Jen Psaki calls it a publicity stunt. Then he actually does it. Ron DeSantis says he's going to do the same thing, but send them up to Delaware.
Boom! That's where they need to send them.
Exactly. Delaware. It's not perfect, right? Sending people to Delaware will just make people in Delaware upset. But the point is like, hey, Biden's the one who's doing it, so why don't you guys get a taste? Here's the thing. I'd be willing to believe that Biden's already sending illegal immigrants to Delaware and other states. They're all over the country. So, well, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this because
I'm curious of the process. Do they just take them on a bus and pull up to a street and they just tell them to scatter? What where are they getting dropped off at?
My understanding is they actually just walked them off the bus and said, "Have a nice day."
Whoa.
Yep.
That's wild.
And
yeah.
the people have all agreed to go on the bus, I believe,
Yes.
too. This is only people that have acquiesced.
Right.
They have agreed to go on the bus.
So I wonder if that'll end up being an endless supply of people, or will they run out of? Because it can't just be a one-off. Because it is, Jen Psaki's right. If this is just a one-off publicity stunt, you get headlines. But if there's a steady stream of them being dropped off in Delaware and in Washington, D.C., and you can keep that drumbeat going, and people start experiencing what, has happened to these states that are on the Mexican border, if you can start really feeling that experience in D.C. and in Delaware and other places, Biden and these guys are going to have to react. Our immigration deal just is the most bizarre. It's not the most bizarre because we have so many bizarre things going on, but
One of
it's
them.
in the top 10.
We'll get to them all, I'm sure.
What is the Delaware? What's so hot about Delaware being a destination?
That's Joe Biden's state.
Okay.
Yeah. Send him to his home. Send him to his home state.
I see. Getting in the guts.
There's an article from the Daily Beast where they said it's xenophobic for the Republicans to do this.
What?
And I'm just like, well, hold on. Joe Biden is sending these people by force on buses to Texas. Greg Abbott is asking them if they want to get on a bus to go to D.C. So is not what Joe Biden doing xenophobic? This is the game we've been talking about a lot, but it happens. The double standard. It's an endless conversation every day about the double standard between what the administration, the Democrats, the establishment are allowed to do, always defended, and anybody who counters in any way is accused of all of the worst far right whatever.
I think they would perhaps prefer to be in D.C. as well. It'd be easier to get your free cell phones right there in D.C. There's probably a direct connect. They probably got a deal set up with Cricket or somebody to get these people the free cell phones they were promised.
I don't think it's fair to call him xenophobic personally. I just looked up the definition. One, unduly fearful of what is foreign, and especially of people or foreign origins. So being unduly fearful of what is foreign, it's not that. I think a lot of this isn't coming from fear of foreigner. It's that you disrupt the local economy when you import people that don't understand the culture or speak the language. And you got to be really careful about disrupting your economy. The United States is very young. It hasn't experienced a large immigration that completely altered the government. Like when people come in slowly and then all of a sudden they're the ones that start to get there. They happened to the Roman Empire. I mean, it's the way the Roman Empire fell, really, is the barbarians from the north or whatever, they came in over hundreds of years, and then now they're the government, and then it's no longer
I don't
the
know
Romans.
if I believe in hyper xenophobia, but I am probably xenophobic because I want people that share my values in this country. I want people that believe in freedom as the ultimate prize, not entitlement as the ultimate prize, or victimization as the ultimate prize. And again, I don't know the people flooding our borders and immigrating illegally. Maybe they do believe in American freedom. Maybe that's why they're coming here. But I don't think that's what the Democrats and the people leading our immigration policy, I don't think those are the values they want them to have.
I don't think you're xenophobic. They use these phobia words to
Yes.
make you sound unreasonable. And if you're just saying, I'm personally, I'm not scared of people from Central South America, or you even have people from Africa coming in. I'm not scared of them all, any of these people. In fact, I know some people, and they're good people. I hear, Trump said some of them are good people, right? No, the reality is they want what a lot of people want: opportunity in America. In fact, I have more respect for them and their desires than I do for many of these woke people in this country. If there's one thing I am worried about, is the woke people. But the issue of xenophobia, that's a ridiculous term. It's meant to obfuscate the real conversation. The real conversation is there are economic limits to what you can do with people just coming across whenever they want. You end up strangling the labor market. You end up flooding the labor market. Supply and demand takes effect, and then people's wages get depressed. There's challenges there. And then, as you pointed out, there are a lot of people here who want to be here. And again, I do respect that desire to be in America, because I know how much this country rocks. But if they don't understand our Constitution, if they don't understand our values, then it dilutes our values and the things that made this country great. So if there's somebody who says, guys, here's the recipe for a great cake, and then you say, we're going to let 10 more bakers in who don't know how to bake it, but they're going to be involved, well, then things are going to get a little wishy-washy. That's why my attitude is always like, let everybody come. Everybody can come, but they got to wait in line like normal and go through a standard process. That way we can make sure the recipe doesn't get disrupted, but we can have more cooks in the kitchen, just as long as everybody's following the rules and we all agree on how it's supposed to go. It's not fear. It's actually, I would consider it to be more compassionate, so that you can make sure people can thrive, and that you're not just throwing them into the middle of a desert where these kids are dying of dehydration.
I think you're talking about just being responsible. And it's no different than who you would allow into your home, particularly if you got kids, wife, husband, whatever. You want to be a responsible homeowner, and so you just don't let any and everybody into your home. That's the way I feel about America.
You see these stories of the refugee crisis, and a lot of people are like, are you going to let some of these refugees into your houses? Many of these left activists who were very much like, yeah, we got to let all the refugees in, would not offer up any of their homes. Now, I do personally know left-wing woke activists who did, and it was great success. And I'm like, that's amazing that you had the resources, you had a plan, you were capable to do this. Not everybody is. Asking a middle-class family who's just scraping by paycheck to paycheck to open their doors to somebody, that's what you're doing when you're like, let's have open borders. Let's allow all these people to come in. Yeah, I get it. You guys might be in big cities with a higher standard of living, a higher cost of living. You have more money, but the poor working class people who are paycheck to paycheck, it's straining their lives, and that's not okay, right? You gotta respect the working class people.
It's that whole concept of like the luxury belief, where you can have these beliefs because you're not really incurring the cost directly. You're sort of exporting those costs to those around you who are taking the brunt of the policies you advocate for. Like the people who are most likely to say something like, abolish the police, they tend to be like upper class white people who have probably live in gated communities. These aren't the people who are dealing in these cities, these areas where there's high crime. So it's really easy for someone like that to say, these platitudes that really sound good, that sort of give them this credit to the people around them. Because again, they're not incurring these costs. The guy named Rob Henderson, he coined that term.
I want to add too, back to the conversation about the buses. Bringing illegal immigrants into these areas just does exactly what Democrats were hoping was going to happen anyway. That you're going to increase the population of a district, which results in a larger, in the census, resulting in a larger population after the census, and then they'll get more congressional seats, more electoral seats. So yeah, send them to DC. Send them, DC maybe makes sense because they don't get representation. Mm-hmm. Sending people to Delaware just gives Delaware more congressional power and more electoral votes. So the real issue is, people should be welcomed to this country with open arms through a legal process that makes sure they thrive, and so do we. But I think the main issue is people on the left, they're not having kids. So they need to find ways that in the next 20 years, they will still have voting power. And that's by bringing in new people who have a tendency to vote for Democratic policies and Democratic politicians. Conservatives have kids, liberals don't. So liberals need to go to the schools to get your kids in line with their views so they can get conservative kids on their side, or they need to bring people in who will side with them.
Reminds me of a Netflix documentary that I watched called Wild Wild Country. It's about Portland, or an area in Oregon, not Portland, but an area in Oregon that was taken over by this Indian Hindu, Nosha. he was basically a sex guru or whatever, and they started literally to gain voting power and to take over this section of Oregon. They started recruiting. This happened in the 70s. This is like a real life story. They started busing in people from Los Angeles, homeless people, into this area so they could change the voting demographics in Oregon so they could take over more. And it ended up the homeless people were on drugs, and so many of them violent, and they actually turned on the people that brought them there because their needs weren't getting met. It's one of the best, greatest documentaries I've ever seen because it happened in the 70s and explains everything that's going on today.
It takes time, and they're willing to invest the time. So if someone who is 8 years old today gets indoctrinated in a school, they're voting in 10 years. So it's a long game. We can't think in short-term cycles like 2 and 4 years. You got to think ahead. You got to think 10, 20 years. Someone born today, more likely to be conservative because of just standard demographics of conservatives having kids, liberals not, and also having abortions. So you got 18 years until conservatives get that advantage. How do you counter that? They know this. They play the long game. Conservatives, I think, the politically minded, politically careered are probably thinking about this on the conservative side. I think regular people miss this. They don't understand necessarily why the schools do what they do when they go after kids.
A lot of what the left is doing seems desperate to me, and it makes me think that they only have a limited amount of time to execute their plan before the whole thing collapses in on them.
Yeah, I was thinking how much of it is desperation, how much of it is instinct. Like, it seems like humans have an instinct to parent. I don't know. I do. I don't know if you guys do. I feel like I just love kids. I wanted to help kids. And so I was like, well, if I never actually have kids, what's reproduction? If I make a bunch of videos and there's a bunch of copies of it, then I'm forming some sort of reproduction that will affect society. And maybe I can help the children that way. Very leftist mentality, It's very much like what we see now. And I wonder if it's just like they really want to help, but they're so twisted that they're trying to help by, infusing these specific ideals. Or if they actually want to hurt people. I'm not getting the vibe that they want to hurt people. It just seems more like a communist
They want power.
Mental shift that's like taking hold of these people or something.
They
I don't know if communist is the right word.
They want power, and they're not afraid to inflict collateral damage on people to get it. I think that's true of anyone, but I think there's a tendency, what we see with the establishment, the Democratic Party, and even the uniparty Republican types. What's happened is there's been a populist uprising, also on the left. I think a lot of the Bernie people, many of them moved over. 9 million Obama voters moved over, voted for Trump. It's really just about populism. We had Steve Bannon saying he was far right, and then he says tax the rich. And I'm like, I don't know if that's far right, dude. I think that's actually a left position, but it's just a populist position. It's about, are you in support of elites telling you what to do and how to live, or do you think the people, we the people, should decide and form our own government?
We the people? What were you going to say, Jason?
I was going to piggyback. Ian, am I right? Are you an atheist or agnostic?
More agnostic than anything.
Okay. And so what I see from the left, honestly, is just they think that they're secular, so they think they're God. And it's just a power grab. And again, did you probably watch or saw a little bit of like Game of Thrones? And Game of Thrones is just a story when it was good, the first 4 or 5 seasons, about what human beings will do for power and anything. They'll do anything for power. And particularly if you don't have some kind of religious belief, some kind of faith in a higher power, and you think you're capable of being the ultimate decider, it puts you in a very bad, you'll do very bad things for power because you have so much belief in your ability to control things and do what's best for other people. And I just don't have that kind of arrogance because I believe I'm just a very tiny, insignificant part of this thing that God put together. And, I don't want that kind of power. I literally want to stick to the principles taught in the Bible and hope for the best and hope that I'm right. And I just see the left is so secular and they see themselves as God. That's what scares me.
What makes me nervous about the church is I feel like the church has acted as now they are the mouthpiece of God. It's like another form of secularism almost. Like, who cares about a building and a guy that tells you he's a priest? Like, God's real. God's out there. God is an energy field flowing. Like, it's there. It's always there. you don't need someone to you don't need to like be told. You don't need authority to tell you that.
What about your relationship with God?
I feel
Leave
it.
the church out of it.
I feel it. Science has helped me see the cosmic microwave background radiation, for instance. It's this web of energy left over after the Big Bang. You see it arcing through star systems, and then you feel your heart beating. It's getting like the heat is coming from without. Like we're getting these electrical currents pumping through us. And after I started to see, I smoke a lot of weed. That helped a lot, actually. And to
He's
feel the
like,
heat,
yeah.
and then you can feel your own heat. And I'm like, wow, did Jesus do Reiki? And then you see that Jesus like went off maybe to India for some period in his early life and studied like Hinduism and Reiki and came back as like a healer. So I started doing Reiki, and that's
Well,
real.
Let me throw in there. I think I actually enjoy when Ian and Seamus talk about religious stuff because Seamus comes from a more like what's the right word? He's devout. You
Yeah.
know, he goes to mass. Ian has a bunch of ideas about spirituality that I think need to be answered, and it creates something interesting. I certainly think Ian sees or feels something that, you know, needs to be answered or defined, and maybe there's in the more rigid structures, people have thought about these things. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.